The sun has gone down at Hangman's Hill, and the ghost at Misery Corner isn't walking tonight. So, welcome to the Weird Tales radio show, your weekly fix of ghost stories, urban myths, witchcraft, magic and folklore. And now, here's your host, writer, award-winning journalist, best-selling author, and sometime werewolf hunter, Charles Christian.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Weird Tales radio show. I'm your host, Charles Christian. Thank you very much for joining us. And once again, we have one of our typically eclectic mixes of stories, some serious, some humorous, some somewhere in the middle. Now on with the show. And now here's Janie with a roundup of weird news.
Yes! Right. This first little news in brief is basically the ancient art of witchcraft combined with the ancient art of scamming people. Right. And we go over to Romania. And this is a Reuters report, so it's completely kosher. A little village. It's in the west of Romania, but I don't really know how to pronounce it. Mogosoaia. Anyway.
I think that's the Transylvanian bit where the vampires come from.
Yeah. And it seems that there's a family of Romanian witches, and they've started to use video and phones, I don't know, Skype, I'm not sure.
iPhones,
yes. Anyway, family of Romanian witches who chant via a video call to a client, in this instance in India, paying for a love spell. So they come up with the words. They obviously advertise their wares on social media, and other ways, I don't know. They then maybe tap into difficulties and lovelorn people around the world who want spells, mainly for good reasons, to get people to fall in love with them, whatever. And they send them chants and say that they will actually do work behind the scenes, coming up with various spells. So they operate out of a decorated shed in a backyard.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Well, decorated. I don't know. You just suddenly got this idea of it, being all painted with flowers in the Romanian way. So, they've made a bit of effort.
Yeah.
Not just any old brown ramshackle shed. And a 20-year-old witch called Cassandra Bazea was actually interviewed and apparently said a truly powerful witch can solve problems from a distance. Obviously, India, America, and Europe and Asia, that's quite a distance, isn't it? But there you go. Very powerful. Oof. I better not say anything nasty about them. They might, they might be really powerful. Anyway, as they say, this is a quote, "It's not the phone or Facebook that are doing the magic. It's the words that we are saying, the rituals that we are doing, and it's enough to look each other in the eye for the ritual to work." I'm getting interested now. The power of the internet has also allowed Romania's busy witch community to gradually migrate their ancient practices onto the web. This is Reuters saying this. Whilst witchcraft has long been seen as a folk custom in Eastern European countries, and many of its estimated 4,000 witches are luring customers from Europe, Asia, and the United States. Yeah. Buzea, who's this, young witch, said it was the younger generation that had persuaded the old about the powers of the selfie, and her mother was quickly on board. Mm-hmm. No fool. No. Anyway, she did point out, nothing's changed. The craft is the same, but now it's much easier for us to be in contact with clients from other countries, says Mihalia Minka, who taught her daughter Bezea the family craft. Right, well, sensibly, they didn't disclose how much they earn, but, wait for it, a tarot reading starts at €50. Wow. Anyway, many of the special rituals, often to do with love, health or money, last for weeks and can run into hundreds. So I think they should decorate their shed.
I think
that
so.
That sort of income.
That's good. That's good.
And the witches also said they'd recently turned their attention to politics, joining anti-corruption protests, which apparently is a bit rife over there. As, of course, it is everywhere.
Yes.
There's no difference. No. I wonder if it would work for Brexit. We could sort of sway it one way or another. Yes, Minka said she connected online with 9 witches and wizards from across Europe to the United States, seeking to put a curse on Romanian lawmakers seen by witches as corrupt. That's what the witches are saying. Streamed online, the group has performed a mass ritual simultaneously with their overseas associates against those who don't do their jobs, those who have bad intentions and will lose their positions because of this and suffer health problems.
Right.
Gosh, they mean business, don't you? Anyway, she said they plan to harness the global power of the internet once more ahead of May's European Parliament elections. We will continue this ritual on the 25th of May. Hey, we better just watch out for that. Let's, everybody.
Yes.
Just check the news, see if anything happened.
Yes. Nigel Farage.
We will do a powerful ritual against the Romanian government. So on the 26th, when the European elections are taking place, we will cast our spell for the good of our country.
Hooray!
Apparently, yeah. I should say an organisation called Transparency International ranks Romania as one of the EU's most corrupt states.
Aha.
It says here, that's Reuters
Yes,
say that.
yes.
Yeah.
Not you picking on the Romanians.
No, well, I have no idea, to be fair, but there we are.
Now for the other side of the coin.
Well, exactly. We move to another hemisphere. An Argentinian man who said he was a sorcerer was sentenced on Monday after pleading guilty last year in a witchcraft extortion scheme. This is according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of California. Yeah. So, this naughty man who was behind the so-called magic was Ariel Boiteux. And through his Paraguay-based business, Amares Immediatos, in case you want to look them up, claimed to help clients perform rituals and spells that would supposedly improve their love lives. So, good so far.
Yep.
But unfortunately, turns a bit dark.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Clients would often learn about the services, which included casting spells designed to foster romantic relationships on Facebook, Instagram, and Mercado Libre, which is a bit like Craigslist or maybe Gumtree or something like that. Anyway, once committed, the clients would be given a list of things needed for the ritual, including items like candles, alcohol, vegetables, and photographs, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of California.
Yeah.
I say, at least there were no toads
or
animal parts, I'm glad to see. Anyway, so then the ritual itself will be conducted remotely and recorded by the person who wanted the spell or wizardry to happen.
Yes.
So and then that was sent to Boiteux and the company that he had. And then, so basically clients would record themselves as they drank alcohol. This is sounding quite interesting. Recited sexually explicit incantations And now we're getting a bit near to what basically is the genius of the whole thing. Performed sexual deeds.
We know where the vegetables come in as well.
This is according to court documents, okay? But Water did not use those videos to help clients cast love spells as advertised, according to the US Attorney Office. No, he threatened to release the videos if they did not pay him large sums of money. Yeah. Clever. But of course, like all crooks, really not that clever, as you'll see. Anyway, US Attorney Robert Brewer said, "This was a despicable scheme that preyed upon people who put their trust in a phony. This defendant used the vulnerability of the lovelorn to humiliate and extort them. And for that, he will pay a price." And he was extradited to the US in July of 2018. He pleaded guilty in December of that same year. 3 other suspects were also arrested, apparently, Los Angeles Times reported. According to the San Diego Union Tribune, Boiteau victimised over 200 people around the world in places like US, Mexico, Peru, even Switzerland.
Oh.
You'd think they'd know a bit better, wouldn't you?
Yeah, probably used Toblerones.
Ouch! Sharp corners. Anyway, according to a plea agreement reviewed by the Los Angeles Times, Boiteau carefully chose his victims. One was a public figure who's not identified.
Boo.
But I think he probably should be. Anyway, according to the Los Angeles Times, Boiteau demanded $7,200 from the person and ultimately received a transfer via Western Union in February 2017. He attempted to extort up to $250,000 from the public figure, threatening to release the ritual recordings.
Mm-hmm.
According to the Washington Post, Boiteau and his company began their online business in 2015 and found there was an interest in Amarres d'Amour, or the moorings of love. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Boiteau, who has been described as a computer expert, capitalised on his interest in that in order to create the perfect storm of a scheme, you see, a bit like those witches. Not that that was a scheme, obviously. It lasted, apparently, until 2017 when an undercover agent from Homeland Security Investigations called the phone number on Amares Inmediatos website, asking to purchase another victim's recording that had been previously shared online in a different extortion attempt. Yeah, so he was getting the money from both ways, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
However, when he went to pick up the wire transfer from the HSI officer, he was arrested by the Paraguayan police. Yeah. What happened to all that clever digital stuff where you don't get involved in picking up money?
Bitcoin or PayPal.
See, that's where it all falls down.
Yeah.
With this genius thing. Anyway, so he was tried in San Diego and on Monday sentenced to 2 years in federal prison, which was the maximum sentence. Right. And, however, according to Union Tribune, Boiteau said in court he's very remorseful for his actions. And I believe him.
Yes, for getting caught.
Yes.
And now we're heading off to the roof of the world for a bit of cryptozoology.
Yes, the Yeti has reared his frightening and furry bonce again. Yes. Beast from the East. This is from Reuters again. Mm-hmm. So, it's all true. And apparently Indian soldiers think they've found Yeti footprints.
Oh.
Yeti again. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Yeti again.
Oh.
Anyway, so mountaineers from the Indian Army were on an expedition in Nepal and they found mysterious large footprints in the snow that they think belong to the Yeti or the abominable snowman. The military said, well, just this week. Yeah. And, largely guided by the scientific community as a myth, the Yeti is part of Nepali folklore / tourism and is said to live high in the snow-capped Himalayas. And in a tweet, accompanied by pictures, the Indian Army said it had sighted footprints measuring, wait for it, 32 by 15 inches, which is 81 by 38 centimetres, in case you're a young person. Close
or a foreigner.
Yes, close to a camp near Mount Makalu in April. Yeah. So I'm sure there's plenty of photographs and casts. I don't know, I suppose you can do a cast in snow, can you? Of course not.
No, there were plenty of photographs.
Yeah. For the first time, an Indian Army mountaineering expedition team has basically, got evidence,
yes.
which is incredible. Makalu is one of the highest mountains in the world, and just to locate it, it's on the border of Nepal and China. And it's very remote, obviously, and many researchers head up there looking for the Yeti. In fact, somebody's written a book on it. Daniel C. Taylor. He's extensively explored the Makula Barron area and written a book on the mystery of Yeti. And you'd think if something was roaming around with footprints 32 inches by 15 inches, they'd actually be spotted a few more times.
It'd be quite a big...
It'd be the size of a dinosaur or something,
yes,
wouldn't it?
Yes,
would be.
Yes.
Yeah. However, Daniel C. Taylor was a sensible man, really. He said the footprints are most likely of bears. Yeah. And he said, if that is the footprint of an animal or a single animal, it's going to be enormous, huge, indeed, like a dinosaur, as I said.
Yes.
So we agree.
There we do.
Yeah. And they need to do repeated measurements of the footprints to ascertain their origin. If you keep measuring them, measuring them, how would that ascertain their origins? You kind of measure them and you're done, aren't you?
Yeah.
You don't keep measuring them, suddenly go, oh, yeah.
I think what he possibly means is the fact that footprints in snow, as it slightly melts,
they get
bigger.
I would think that, yeah. But what do I know? And anyway, it says, you do wonder a little, though. He said, one needs to really confirm these measurements of the footprint size because we know for sure there are no dinosaurs living in the Barron Valley.
Well, that's a relief.
Yes. Anyway, yeah, so, as we know, tales of wild, hairy beasts roaming Himalayas have captured our imagination since the 1920s. And even Sir Edmund Hillary went looking for the creature. However, in 2008, Japanese climbers returning from a mountain in western Nepal told Reuters they had seen footprints which they thought belonged to the Yeti. Apparently, although they carried long lens cameras, video cameras and telescopes, they hadn't seen or taken any photographs of the creature. But, has to be said, scientists have found little evidence of the Yeti's existence so far. But in 2017, a group of international researchers studied multiple purported Yeti samples collected from across the Himalayas regions and concluded they belonged to bears.
Right.
And obviously quite big bears, so I just looked them up.
Yeah.
And, Himalayan brown bears. They live around there. And they have a red version as well.
Oh, right.
The brown bear males reach up to 7 foot long. So if you're quite a smallish person and you caught one of those fairly close by, you'd think that was quite giant, wasn't you? And apparently also analysis of DNA from a mummified supposed Yeti, this was in 2017, so quite up-to-date science, showed it was in fact a Himalayan brown bear.
Right.
So sorry, folks.
Then
Just a bear. Right.
Thank you, Janie, for crushing people's hopes that the Yeti is really out there. It's just a buyer.
Yes. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Something wicked this way comes. Weird Harvest Press presents Harvest Hymns, the sweet fruits and twisted roots of folk horror. A 2-volume set of books investigating the music of folk horror, featuring contributions from some of the biggest names in the field. Candia McCormack, Johnny Trunk, Maddie Pryor, Sharon Krause, Jim Jupp and Kemper Norton, to name just a few. Available now via lulu.com. 100% of all Weird Harvest Press profits are donated to wildlife charities.
Welcome, fool. You have come of your own free will to the appointed place. It is time to keep your appointment with the Wicker Man.
So those lovely people at Folklore Thursday recently asked me to write a story for them on the Green Children of Woolpit. Were they aliens, the Fae, or just orphans of war? Anyway, I did so, and it reminded me of the details of the story, so I thought I'd put together this little piece for you. In the middle years of the 12th century, 2 green-skinned children mysteriously appeared in a field in Suffolk near the village of Woolpit. But who or what were they? Where did they come from? Theories range from aliens to the Fae to orphans of war and even to naughty children. My own interest in the Green Children of Woolpit began when I first moved to East Anglia and encountered the village one day while returning from Bury St Edmunds. The village is about 7 miles from Bury. It was reignited when I wrote a book on the folklore and legends of the Yorkshire Wolds, which features a chapter on the writings of the 12th century monkish chronicler William of Newburgh. William was born near Bridlington, and Newburgh Priory was a daughter house of the Bridlington Priory. But rather more importantly, in his writings, he talks about the prodigy of the Green Children. And more recently, in a fictionalised account of their life and times of William of Newburgh, it's part of a novel I'm just finishing, I suppose you'd call it medieval urban fantasy, I have him actually encounter one of the Green Children. So let's set the scene. The basic story, and there's a couple of versions of it from chroniclers of that time. Facts slightly vary, but broadly this is the story. At some point during the middle years of the 12th century, villagers bringing in the harvest near Woolpit found 2 children, a young boy and his older sister, by the mouth of one of the village's wolf pits. The village actually derives its name from wolf pit, which were large holes dug in the ground used to trap wolves, wolves being a problem in 12th century England. The children were undernourished, their skin was green, they spoke in a language nobody could understand, and they were dressed in an unfamiliar type of clothing. Initially, they would only eat raw broad beans, but later began to eat regular food, after which their skin turned a more normal hue. The young boy never fully recovered to health and died soon after. However, his sister did thrive and eventually learned to speak English. She told Richard de Carn, the head of the family who gave refuge to her and her brother, that they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, where the sun never shone and the light was like twilight. She said they'd been herding their father's cattle when they heard of the sound of bells coming from a cave. These bells are generally credited with being those of the cathedral at Bury St Edmunds, and after following the sound of the bells, they emerged from one of the wolf pits. Our only near contemporaneous sources are William of Newburgh, who was writing in the latter part of the 12th century, and Ralph of Coggeshall, the abbot of an abbey, Coggleshall Abbey, which is about 30 miles from Woolpit, and he was writing about 20 years after William. Both of them are really, we're talking about hearsay evidence. And they're also distinctly Fortean in their accounts, as they tend to merely describe the various marvels and prodigies of their age rather than trying to explain them. William, as we've mentioned before on this show, is the first English source for stories of revenants, what we nowadays call zombies and vampires. Anyway, William says, talking about the Green Children, he was overwhelmed by the weight of so many and such competent witnesses. As I said, though, it was strictly hearsay, and he was compelled to believe the accounts of the Green Children, going on to add, the nature of those Green Children who sprang from the earth is too obtuse for the weaknesses of our abilities to fathom. Yeah. Nevertheless, since the 19th century, when the writings of William and Ralph re-emerged into history, a number of theories have evolved. These range from it being a metaphor for the Britons, the people who originally occupied the eastern counties, who were driven from the land prior on the arrival of the Saxons. Another theory is it was they were actually aliens trapped on this planet when their spaceship either crashed or some kind of matter transmitter malfunctioned. Not so much little green men then as a little green boy and a girl. And even that they were naughty children who ran away from looking after their father's cattle, got lost in a forest and, in the words of modern historian Derek Brewer, didn't know their own home address. So couldn't say, this is where we came from, we're lost. The most popular historical explanation for the Green Children is that they were children of Flemish immigrants, which would explain both their unintelligible language, maybe speaking Fleming, and their unfamiliar clothes that they wore. And there was, at this time, a colony of Flemish fullers, that's dyers of clothing, living at Fornham St Martin, which is just a few miles north of Bury, which might also go towards explaining the fact they said they came from St Martin's land. Significantly, a large number of Flemings were killed in the aftermath of a battle at nearby Fornham in the year 1173, which raises another possibility that the Green Children were orphaned from their parents, who were slain in the battle, aftermath of the battle, and fled into the countryside, suffering from what we'd now describe as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which would also explain their initially odd behaviour. As for the green skin, they could have been suffering from chlorosis, a vitamin deficiency that gives the skin a greenish tinge, but which disappears with a better diet. And then there are the folkloric mythic explanations. Were the children some kind of fey-like elementals who accidentally strayed from their other world into the real world of people? If you accept this view, then it's reinforced by the belief that the other world exists in parallel to our world and can be reached by portals, such as caves and, presumably, wolf pits. Or was this an early prototype of another popular East Anglian-based folk tale, that of the Babes in the Woods? Except in this version, instead of being abandoned by their wicked uncle to die in the forest, they were poisoned with arsenic, which would also explain their skin colour, but survived. Sadly, the answer is we'll never know, as we are now separated by 850 years of time from accounts which were only ever based on hearsay or folklore, friend of a friend urban legends. According to Ralph of Coggleshall, the girl subsequently worked as a servant, where she was considered to be a very wanton and impudent, before vanishing from history when she apparently married a lawyer from King's Lynn, or Bishop's Lynn as it was then called. Personally, I'm a romantic, and I like to think this was an encounter with the Fae before they were driven into the margins by people of the modern world. And that's it. We're out of time. Not even time this show to squeeze in a little story. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope you'll join us again next time. It's Charles Christian here signing out. And until the next time, stay well, stay weird. Good night.
Black Shuck, the demon dog of East Anglia, is baying at the moon, which means it's time for us to go. You've been listening to the Weird Tales radio show with Charles Christian, your weekly fix of ghost stories, urban myths, witchcraft, magic and folklore. You can keep in touch with us online at www.weirdtalesradio.com, by email to weirdtales@icloud.com, and on Twitter
@urbanfantasist.
Join us again next week for another edition of the Weird Tales radio show. Good night.
This podcast is a part of Straight Up Strange Productions. Discover more shows like this one at straightupstrange.com.